I wrote my discharge on
Okay.
in case somebody hadn't seen it.
Okay, great.
Interested.
Okay, today is Friday, April 28th, 2006. We're at Orchard Park High School with Bert Diller, a World War II veteran, and the interviewees are,
Brittany Valentino.
speak up,
Oh, Brittany Valentino.
And Ashley Williams.
okay. And the girls will be interviewing Mr. Diller on his experiences during his time in the service. So it will take about a half an hour, and girls learn about what life of a soldier was like during World War II. So they'll have some questions to ask you.
They should have done this a little over a year ago. My wife could have come in, she was in the service.
It's too bad that we didn't get to. All right, so have a good time, girls, and learn about the war, and then I'll be back later, and then maybe Mr. Diller will show you some of the stuff also, and then we can scan it. So
Okay.
they have some questions for you, okay?
Okay, I'll answer the questions first. Not like that list you give me.
Were you drafted or did you enlist yourself?
Drafted.
You were drafted? Alright. And where were you living when you were drafted? Like what part of the United States?
Short Avenue, South Bolton.
Alright. And what branch were you in World War II?
The Army.
Army?
I initially went into the 12th Armored Division, was assigned to Service Company 56th Infantry, and then they started sending me home.
How old were you when you were drafted?
I was drafted 2 days after I was 21.
How'd you feel like when you first knew you were
Did
drafted?
I like what?
Feel like emotions? You don't remember?
Nothing unusual, really. Everybody was going in the service in those days. I anticipated it sometime before I got there.
You weren't scared?
Hmm?
Were you scared?
No.
No. Alright. You went through boot camp, right?
Went to what?
Boot camp?
No.
No. Do you remember arriving at your places where you're stationed?
I had all the places here. Do you want a verbal resume of it quickly? Or
Sure.
fairly short it would be.
Oh, that's fine.
Okay, I left here, well, the bus came up to the drafting station on South Park and Eden roughly. Picked us up, and it had snowed the night before, and when we went up Bailey Avenue to Fort Niagara, we ran out of snow when we crossed Delvin Avenue. That was a Tuesday I went up there, and I was processed Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday morning. As soon as breakfast was over, I was in a group that got on a train in Niagara Falls. It was Thursday morning. We were on that train about a day and a half. I think we went through Kentucky twice. We go ahead 10 miles and 15 and back up 10 for all day long. Anyhow, we got to, at that time it was Camp Campbell, it's Fort Campbell now. In Clarksville, that's Tennessee. Got there that night. Took us in trucks into Camp Campbell. And after supper, we went down to the field house and took motor ability tests. I don't know if you've ever taken those, but they take quite a time. And then we went to see up before the panel that was interviewing each one, and they look over the results of your tests and ask you what you'd prefer. And we had the whole 12th Army up in the field house behind all the units in the Army. There's 2 or 3 tank battalions, infantry regiment, the medics, this, that, and everything else. And the sergeant said, well, you've got a pretty good record here. What would you like to be in? So I told him I thought he knew more about the Army than I did. What did he think? So he said, all right, infantry service company. But we weren't there. Well, a little back history to explain what happened for the next few weeks. They were just initiating new Army units at that time. And we had a cadre that came from Campbell, Louisiana, from one of the other armored divisions, no doubt. And they were just getting the people into the, filling in the division, and then we took our basic training right in the division. Yeah, it took about 2 weeks to get all the people there. It was about like the company I was in, they had a TO of 152 people. They went up close to 200 because there'd be quite a few dropouts during the time, training. And we were getting anywhere from 3 to 4 or 5 people a day. Well, the military has a ration system whereby whatever number of people you have in your unit one day, that's the number of rations you get for the next day. So it was not too much to eat. So Camp Campbell, 2 main avenues running up. We were over near New York Avenue on the west side of camp, and the barracks ran through here. And down our side of that, the other side of the whole length of the camp was the motor pool, because everything was motorized. So we had, at supper time, we had a line that went into the mess hall, and after everything was cleaned up, it went down to the PX, which was the other side of this avenue, right down the block, not too far, about from here to 20. And 28, I should say. That was 20 when I was young, you know.
Really?
I got a road map, title Flying A, it's Route 20.
Wow.
But we went down the PX, and by an hour after supper, there wasn't a candy bar or a muffin or a cupcake or anything to eat down there. That went on for about 2 weeks, so we got caught up. And of course, in the meantime, to keep us busy, they had us doing whatever work they needed done around the place there. And I and a couple other fellas got put on a detail, had our rifles, machine guns, and what have you. They were all packed in Cosmoline for overseas shipment. I guess everything came to the Army that way, but we had to take them out of the boxes and clean them up and everything for our training. So we did that for a week or two. And when they got up to where they had a number of people in, we started training. Well, we only took, service company only took 5 weeks of basic, and then they were supposed to go into specialized training. The rest of the infantry and the other units, I think, had about 15, 20 weeks really. But anyhow, they gave us the rifles to clean up, and after we finished those, we got the machine guns. And then after we started basic, about toward the end of the first week, fellow in charge of the basic, I think he was a temporary sergeant or something, said, now we're going to teach you how to disassemble and clean up these rifles. And you learn it, I would say, in about 5-10 minutes, that you don't open your mouth or say anything. But he's the guy that gave me the boxes of rifles to clean. And the cleaning stuff. And the proper answer would have been, if you weren't in the service, to say, well, Lord, why the heck did you tell us how to clean those when you gave them to us to begin with? Then we had to take them all apart. And, well, I wasn't too bad mechanically. You'll see that when you get to the rest of my thing there. But it took a little figuring. But one or two of the fellows I was cleaning with had pieces flying up through the air and all over the place. Picked the wrong thing off and the springs throw them around. So anyhow, we got through that. And what little training we did do, I shot expert on everything because I had a good background there for getting in the service. In fact, I've got a fair background in most anything. At one time, there wasn't anything I didn't think I couldn't fix, repair, build, or something like that. I built my own house over here on Mile Strip Road. And, I don't know. You want to still go on?
Sure, yeah.
Farther than that, huh?
So what exactly was like your job or assignment like when you were in World War II? Like, were you fighting or?
What is that?
What was like your assignment?
My assignment?
Yeah, like once war started.
Well, at that time I shot expert on everything we had, rifle, machine gun, and we had a couple of 37 millimeter self-propels in the service there that were in our unit. So they put me as a anti-tank gunner in a 37. And of course we weren't doing any shooting and we weren't doing anything with the 37s right then in camp. Most of the guys were still taking their basic and learning how to drive. I would say one thing, our particular company, being service company, had enough vehicles that if we went any place, everybody in the company could ride. We didn't have to hike.
That's good.
So we did, what was it? It's heck to get old, you lose the track of you for a year once in a while. But
Oh, you were talking about the gunner and the 37.
the what?
The 37.
37 millimeter?
Yeah.
Little piece of self-propels? Yeah. Okay, so anyhow, the service, well, all the places in the time I was in the service, contrary to what the Navy does, if you were in a table of organization and assigned to a particular position, you would get the rating of that position. Well, the anti-tank gunner was a PFC, so I got to be a PFC automatically being there. But since we weren't doing any shooting or training or field exercises with them right then, why, they put me up in the motor pool, in the parts department, help the mechanics there and get parts and things like that. Then Washington, D.C. came out with an edict to the armored forces that all the divisions in the states had to send some of the mechanics to a mechanic school at Fort Knox, wheel vehicle mechanics training. And going back a little, when I first got in the unit, a couple of weeks I was there, the cadre, of course, had a few mechanics in the cadre, but they were in there with the vehicles and all, and if they were driving or anything, why, I don't know where they got to eat, if anything at all. I guess the Army made something special for them that they had. But they wouldn't get back to the barracks till 9, 10 at night. They had to take their vehicles through the wash rack and all this and that. So, and they were working practically around the clock repairing them because, well, our unit, for example, men coming in after their experiences in the Civil War, and I can recount what they amounted to, the Civil War and World War I. But when they filled in the unit, they had men coming from all over the United States, roughly according to the population of the United States. And I would say in our unit, going up to 200, well, we had maybe 22 people from New York City, but then you get places like Montana and the Dakotas and so forth, and you'd have 1 or 2 people from each one of the states all over. So anyhow, they had them spread out like that. Well, New York City, the way it worked out, we ended up probably with a good 25, 30 people from New York City. Okay, they're all mostly young, although they were drafting up to 45. We had we did have one old fellow from New York City. He was in his early 40s. But when we started driving, of course, you had the double shift and everything in the ears and vehicles. And well, I grew up on the farms here, and I had a fair knowledge of vehicles. And okay, I drove tractors and trucks and everything else, so they'd take me out. Well, you can drive pretty good. You want to get a light? I don't think so. Those guys weren't getting back out in the field till 8 o'clock at night, and in the wintertime that's dark.
Yeah.
But the only fellow from New York that could drive was this older one, and he had drove a snowplow from New York City. The other guys, you know, I was 21, what the heck, they were in their 20 to 24 or 5, most of them. They couldn't drive a vehicle, didn't know anything about them. Oh boy, I mean to tell you. So, anyway, when they, and when they were learning why, every time they went on a field march, they had to replace the whole engine in the motorcycles and things, put a whole new engine in. So, they went on from there, and when Washington said they had to send mechanics to school at Fort Knox, Kentucky, they couldn't figure out how they could afford to let any of their mechanics go to school, and they looked up my records and found out that I'd done pretty good on the tests around here. I can go on something on mechanical aptitude much later, about 8 years, no, 6, 7 years later. But at any rate, since I was just giving out parts, they figured they could send me to school. I'd get by there, and they could keep their mechanics where they could use them. So I went up to Fort Knox to school for 3 months. Well, our top instructors there were the guys from the Ford Chrysler and General Motors that were in charge of an area of the country on lemon vehicles. If somebody got a car and local garages couldn't really fix it, it was a little beyond their capabilities or something. Why, these guys would take over and cover the whole area. So they were our chief instructors there. They eventually got warrant officer things, direct appointments, and went overseas with some of the units too. But so I spent 3 months at Fort Knox. Wheel vehicle motor mechanic, skilled excellent I got on that.
What'd you do after those 3 months? They sent you anywhere else?
No, I went back to my unit. I was there a month or less. About 2 or 3 months after I was at Fort Knox, Washington came out another one of its edicts that they needed engineers. Well, they set up what they called Army Specialized Training Program, ASTP. And they sent people to college.
Mm-hmm.
Well, initially, and I was at Fort Knox at the time, they gave us a special test to see who would qualify. And I took it 3 hours one afternoon, and everybody that took it had 115 or higher on the general aptitude test for the service. And I guess you were supposed to get above 115 or something on this one, would be qualified to go to college. Well, this was a 3-hour test. That was really one of the toughest test I ever took. It went on, well, I took the whole 3 hours. I had a watch so I could time myself, make sure I was covering questions fast enough. But this particular test, a good 90% of the answers were on the test.
Really?
Yeah, if you could read fast enough and
Oh,
know
yeah.
what you were reading and spell it out. For example, one of the problems, they had a group of men in England. They were going from one town, they had these old Latin names of the towns in there, to this other one, and we're going on such and such a week or weekend or something, and what trains would you take between these towns and so forth to get them there in the shortest travel time as possible. And of course, this train only ran on holidays, this one only ran on Sundays, this didn't run on weekends, and you had to juggle all this stuff and then answer the questions. See? So the answers, as I say, were there, but how long does it take you to do all that and get through the thing? Well, I finished that test and I felt like I did a day's hard work. I was one of 6 people that I got 122 or 3 on it, I think, and you're supposed to get, I was one of 6 that were over 115.
Well, that's good.
From this other group. So, I figured I was good for ASTP. Well, in the meantime, I finished the course there and I went back to Campbell. And when they gave the test down there, so few people qualified on the test that they were going before a board of officers for an interview. So I went before the board and had an interview. And toward the end of June, they shipped me up to Columbus, Ohio, to Ohio State. Now, I had 3 years of German in high school, and I figured that I'd probably get into interrogation or something like that with it. But apparently they wanted engineers, and I had never taken any engineering, although I guess I had a good practical background without knowing the specifics of engineering. And anyhow, I took algebra, geometry, college entrance exam, and a guy called me in and said, looked him over and said, you know, you're qualified to go to basic engineering, but the basic program, you had to go back to private. I was only at PFC. In addition to that, at the time, we were living at 1942 Iuka Avenue, across the main drive from the campus there, and we had a colored maid and a janitor in the place. We were eating in the consolidated mess with all the co-ed serving, which it all beats the Army camps all out.
Yeah.
So I hesitated a moment so he wouldn't get suspicious that I was jumping into something, but I signed. I got to be a private again. Eventually, a couple of years later, I got to be a PFC by Act of Congress. If you had a year or two of service that without any demerits for something or other, why you could automatically get a PFC. But I never got on a table of organization again, so I never got a promotion. When I got out, I was PFC, but if they had put me on assigned me to a unit, and they couldn't assign me to anything except what I was in at that time. That comes later. But anyhow, I finished the school, I was back there at camp, and then I got into ASTP. Well, I was at Columbus, Ohio about 3 weeks, and they sent me up to De Pere, Wisconsin, St. Norbert College. It's 6 miles from Green Bay. So that's where I was. 9 months, I went through the whole basic engineering course, 12 weeks for each one. And that is one rough, tough course, especially when you never took engineering or any of those subjects. And this was all the college stuff. And like the first term we took, your physical physics or something like that, mechanical physics and things of that nature. Well, the problems get into higher math. Well, in math, at the same time, we took college algebra, and the last 3 weeks we took, or 2 weeks, we took college trig. But then the next term, we took, the heck is the geometry there? Analytic geometry, that term. We didn't get the calculus till the third 12 weeks coming up. All right, when we're taking physics here, when you get to the higher part of the physics, well, you're getting calculus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
A lot of fun. Great it was. Anyhow, I waded through all that and I got out of there in April of 44, that was. And they shipped a whole lot of us down to Camp Crowder, Missouri. I was there about 2-3 days, and they called us out and said, now you're going to go to school. What do you want to go to? And they had the whole list of Signal Corps schools running along the side of the building where we were signing up. So I figured I'd had schooling in motor mechanics. I'd go into generators and motors for power. I and a couple of fellows had been up to Wisconsin. We were standing in that line looking at it, and right 2 places over, there was a sign that said teletypewriter mechanic. Somebody says, what's a teletypewriter mechanic? You ever heard of a teletypewriter mechanic?
No.
Well, we hadn't either at that time. We all looked at each other. Finally, somebody heard us talking about it and said, that's one of those typewriters they have in the police station that types without anybody on the keys.
Really?
Oh.
You don't know what a
No.
Do you like talking to it?
teletype is? No, the teletype writer is basically a typewriter, but it's on power lines. I mean, I can type here, and wherever the line goes to, anywhere in the country, why, the one down there receives it and types it up.
Oh,
Oh.
never heard of it.
Real nice. We all looked at one another and thought that was rather intriguing, ran over that line. So 5 months later, I was a teletype mechanic. And during that time, we'd had to fill out papers, and we went through another session of interviews and this and that. But anyhow, in October, that was a 5-month school there. In October, they sent me to Bint Hill Farms, Washington. I was still a private then. And there were 30 people in the class. Half of the class was commissioned officers up to the grade of major. But I finished that class and went back to Crowder and trained on with a couple of units there. They'd assigned us to, well, you got something here you can look at. I'll show you that. This is how they transferred us around camp. Put paper out like that.
Wow.
Sometimes I wouldn't get them for a day or two after I was supposed to be
Really?
moved. Yep, that's the way you got your military orders. So, what they did, well, they had a system that was quicker than these orders even. They called it VOCO, Verbal Orders of the Commanding Officer. And the unit you were with right there assign you verbally to another unit. You get together with the commanding officer. Hey, I'm going to put this fellow over in your unit. Okay, we'll take him back. So it'd be transferred to another unit. Go around like that. Well, after a while, they sort of lost track of me because when I went on verbal orders, why I didn't. The office itself didn't get anything to put me on their records, so they didn't assign me to any local details or anything like that. In fact, at one time, if Buffalo had been as close as St. Louis from the camp, I'd have gone home for a month or two and told the guys when they're looking for me, why call me up. But I didn't figure I'd get back from Buffalo that quick.
Yeah.
So, but I had a room in Carthage at that time for $3 a week, and go to town, stay there. That was quite a thing. In July of '45, I think, by that time, I was still in there, and I was training with well, I work on the machines, training. We were maintaining the equipment. The last school I went to, that one with the officers at Dinnhill Farms, we finished up right at the end of the year, just after the Battle of the Bulge. They took all the officers out and shipped them overseas 2 days before. But at that particular point, we couldn't get to where there was any fighting or anything.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've ever heard of debriefing.
No.
Probably not. But, it sounded like it broke.
Yeah. Hopefully not.
How do you open?
Oh, wait. Oh. Right
Is that
there.
All right,
Jim's
there we
class?
go.
Yeah.
All right.
But actually, after I finished that school, or went to that school, it would have been against government regulations for me to be assigned anywhere where I could be captured or action or any type of that action. Because I got out in 3rd of February, 1946, and the 27th, the day before Memorial Day, I started as a cryptographic repairman, ASA down in Washington, D.C. I worked there for 8 years. And, I ended up, the last year I was down there, I was in civilian in charge of cryptographic maintenance and supply for a Department of the Army worldwide. I had a $20 million budget. So at that rate, why, might be of interest, I worked in the White House. I worked on the installation they had there. Also I put the installation in the train when Truman was making his whistle stops out west on the presidential campaign.
Oh, really?
I put that installation in there. And then I sent a fellow over to Tokyo to install the unit we had in MacArthur's plane at that time. And yeah, I had one up in Alaska for a month or two. And I had a lot of interesting things there.
Mm-hmm.
When I got in charge of the outfit, I was the top civilian and the head of the department. Washington at that time, and they probably still do, had what they called gold dust and silver dust twins. You had a department or something like that nature. The silver dust twin was the civilian in charge of the department. The gold dust one was the officer assigned by the Army, and he was generally above you in grade, but by the same token, they were rotated every 2 or 3 years.
Really?
So the civilian was there to give continuity to the department, and the other one was, depending on their background and other things, why they were there to learn. So that went on there. Shortly before I left, the side thing there, shortly before I left, I was on a special detail. We wrote up a paper for the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And I found out 2 years later that I made a,
Sorry.
How much longer do you need, girls?
Not long at all. Do you have that much more?
no, we're almost through. We're almost through. I was giving some anecdotes of where well, I was a civilian at that time when I worked in the White House and on the plane and those things, but I was still working for the Army, the same place I'd been when I went to school in '45 in the service and so forth and so on. Like I said, well, I know for a fact that there's very few people that would have the service time and the record and go to the places I did.
Did you hear about all the places?
Yeah, the colleges he went to.
Oh, great. Okay, well, because the bell rang, so these girls have to get to their next
Oh,
class.
okay.
So, did you turn that tape over?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so it's been
Any
over a half an
questions
hour.
that they have before they take it?
I think they've got their notes and they
Yeah.
have the tape that they could listen to, so, how about the pictures? Did you
Yeah,
get
No,
no,
I
we
didn't
didn't
see
see
those.
those.
Okay, because, can we take these and scan these pictures so they can put them into their presentation?
I had a lot of better pictures than these. My wife died a year ago, the 1st of April, and I couldn't find them. I went through the house. The kids put things away. This was when we were leaving Wisconsin, St. Norbert College. It's getting on the train. This was the New Year's party we had in the gym the day before we left out here. These are all St. Norbert up in Wisconsin.
Got that, St. Norbert? Did you hear about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all of those. That's my 8th grade graduation.
Oh, that would be
Nice.
good to put in there.
Oh, I was born in 1921. That's my uncle's Ford from 1921.
Oh.
That was
good
taken
one.
a couple years
Year
later.
of birth, year of
Yeah,
birth?
I'm saying,
1921.
and this,
Oh, okay, so see, he's even got some of them marked on the back, so
Yeah.
I'm not too, though.
yeah, there's various things here. You've got to get the class.
And then we'll scan this, your discharge.
Yeah.
Now, do you feel comfortable leaving these with us for a couple days? Or do you want to wait until we scan them?
I can wait.
Okay.
Oh, some of this stuff. This here, this is the discharge. This is another paper.
Yeah,
here.
we've seen that before. How about this one?
Oh, he showed us that
Oh,
one.
okay.
And that was just a sample of the way they,
Transfer.
yeah. Now, there's a picture, a white,
Oh.
although,
Which one is your wife?
one on the right,
What's your wife's name?
Elaine Perry Diller.
Probably one
Yeah,
of
if
the-
you had got this here a little over a year ago, she could have got all these pictures and everything. I don't know what happened to them. The kids went through their stuff and
How many kids did you have?
moved things, and I had hundreds of pictures. And I mean hundreds.
How many children do you have?
4.
Four.
Okay, well, I want to get a picture of you with the girls.
Okay.
So,
What else do I have? That, we got it.
yeah, we'll have to sign that. Okay, stop. Eject. Okay. How about you right up over there, girls, on the,
Okay.
with Mr. Diller?
Now, as far as memorabilia or whatever it is, I've got my uniform, my wife's uniform. I've got my uncle's uniform with gas mask from World War I.
Wow. Oh, that's perfect. Smile. Okay, now I want to get some on the floppy, a couple on the floppy, because. Smile. One more. Okay, we're we're all set, and we found your hat, you left your hat in the